Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first full moon of 2022, happening on January 17th at 27 degrees of Cancer. I am so excited to dive into this rabbit hole with you. There is so much to talk about. I'm Ananda, the Galactic Mystic, and welcome to my channel. Big, just warm, slobbery hugs to my subscribers. If you are new, pull up a seat, grab a drink, and enjoy your stay. And consider joining us if you like this type of content. On this channel, I talk about astrology, mysticism, folk magic, navigating the leading edge of consciousness, and working with and living with the natural cycles of life and of the earth. So this full moon is happening at 27 degrees of Cancer. Now, in the video that I did for the Capricorn new moon on January 2nd, I talked about how we are in this weird portal where every full moon is at 27 degrees and every new moon is at 12 degrees for like 6 months, beginning in October of 2021 and lasting until I think it's March 2022. So this is our fourth full moon at 27 degrees. Of course, they are in different signs, but the fact that they are at 27 degrees means a couple things. One, it means that these full moons are making aspects to the galactic center, and they are making aspects to the United States natal moon, which is at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So this is just an interesting thing to think about how we may very well be in the middle of a dramatic shift, change for all of us, of course, but probably particularly for the United States. And I will talk more about that later in this video. Something to think about, notice. It's pretty rare, pretty cool. Anyway, so let's talk about this. When I first looked at this Cancer full moon, at first I thought it was pretty, sorry, my eyes watering. At first I thought it was pretty straightforward, but boy, was I wrong. There is so much here and it is just delicious. Okay. So this full moon in Cancer, this is the fruiting, the maturation of the seeds that we planted, the seeds of presence, because Capricorn and Cancer in navigational astrology, this is the axis of the energy of presence. And by this, I mean that these are the energies that hold our presence in all of the realms of our life, private and public. Now, Cancer is ruled by the moon and is known to be the most sensitive of all the signs of the zodiac. It's almost as if the purpose of Cancer energy is to be extraordinarily, extremely feeling. And this makes this a very sensitive energy. And as a cardinal water sign, whenever Cancer is involved, there is the potential for major intuitive activations. Cancer has incredible healing energy, and it's all about cozy, safety, warm blankets of trust, and divinitizing all things domestic. So in this full moon, the moon is out of bounds, which means that this moon is not going to be behaving in a typical Cancer way. This one is a rebel. There's a rebellious nature to her energy. She's not interested in being confined to what we would normally say about a Cancer moon. So I'm going to pull up the chart for you so you can see what I'm about to talk about in the chart with me. Okay, so here we have the chart for the full moon happening January 17th, 2022 at 6:48 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here we have the moon in Cancer at 27 degrees. Here we have our sun. Full moons are always an exact sun-moon opposition. And it's here that we can see that this full moon is really tightly opposing Pluto, which is conjunct the sun. Now, this, just in general terms, moon opposing Pluto is a recipe for a little bit of a potential, not just a little bit, a potential for some roller coastery emotions, highs and lows. And we know how full moons can affect us anyway. And so with the combination of this Pluto opposition, we could maybe expect some highs and lows emotionally. This is a major feature of this full moon, and it could be significantly uncomfortable for us all, particularly for those who are not following these cycles, who don't know that that's why they're feeling that way. It's always easier when we have a little bit of a heads up and kind of understand the energies that we're in. It helps us be more understanding and compassionate to others as well as ourselves. And our world could really use a whole lot of that right now. So yeah, there's something about knowing it could get weird that makes it feel less weird. And as I said a moment ago, we all know that full moons have a certain effect on the collective emotional state, just in general. And so we have that inner turmoil, potential for drama, and a potential for disclosure, because the Sun-Pluto conjunction, the sun is really shining that light on the murky depth, the hidden things of Pluto. And once we dive into this rabbit hole, you'll see that there is some incredibly delicious, powerful magic here that could really rock us in all sorts of ways. We also have a lovely sextile with the North Node, who is just about to change signs. The nodes are just about to change signs into Taurus and Scorpio. And this is something that I've been talking about. I've made a couple of videos about this. This is something that we should know about. I'm going to put the links to those videos in the description box. Please check them out if you have not. I think that they will be very helpful for the next 18 months of this new nodal cycle that we're about to enter. We could be on the brink of some real psychodrama, and the leading edge guidance is to calm the F down. Cultivate sanity by connecting to the earth and with our own inherent and humble power. So check those out. Mercury is retrograde at this time. So, all the Mercury retrograde things, I have a set of rules that I follow for Mercury retrograde. I'll put the link for that. It was a post that I did on the community tab on YouTube and on social media. I think that we should all stop freaking out about Mercury retrograde and just learn to work with it. It doesn't have to be that big of a deal. But Mercury being retrograde during this full moon in Cancer is amplifying the intuitive potential that we're going to talk about in just a moment. So back to the sextile that this full moon is making with the North Node. The sextile is a bit of a reassurance that no matter what goes down, we have the opportunity to use it to push us forward, and that we can transmute anything into an opportunity that works for us. Here are the nodes. Here is that sextile to the North Node. And, you know, they are at 0 degrees of Sagittarius and Gemini. The nodes move backwards. So when they enter, when the North Node enters Taurus in 2 days, well, 2 days from this full moon, January 19th, which is also when Uranus stations direct. There is so much going on. But anyway, they will be moving into 29 degrees of Taurus and 29 degrees of Scorpio, just FYI. Okay, now it's time to get a little bit nerdy. This full moon is conjunct the fixed star. Okay, so I am a dirty American and I say words wrong all the time. I really don't know how to pronounce some of these things. I'm going to do my best. Conjunct the fixed star Alskiacat. Alskiacat. And I mean conjunct by an orb so tight, you could not even floss it. This is a 0 degree and 1 minute orb. So this is the only star with a proper name in the obscure and faint constellation of the Lynx. And this constellation, it lies near Ursa Major, the Big Bear, and it is the fourth brightest star in this constellation, and is visible to the naked eye, has a little bit of an orange hue. This star is an evolved giant, which it has about twice the mass of our sun, and it's about 740 times as luminous. It's pretty bright. It's also a variable star, which means that its brightness it doesn't remain static. It, you know, sometimes is brighter than other times. So the constellation Lynx, it was discovered, or I guess created, invented by an astronomer in the 1600s by the name of Johann Hevelius. And he's known as the father of lunar topography. He was the first person to draw the surface of the moon. He named this constellation the Lynx because he's kind of bragging on his own eyesight. He said you had to have the keen eyesight of the Lynx in order to see this constellation in the sky, because it is pretty faint. Now, the term lynx-eyed was a well-used, well-known term in medieval times. And when they used the phrase lynx-eyed, it described the ability to divine the secret and hidden meaning of things, as well as the ability to see without being seen, kind of like a ninja vibe. So this attribute of piercing insight prompted the creation and the naming of the Academy of the Lynxes, which was an Italian scientific society of which Galileo was a member. Now, this society contributed enormously to the scientific revolution. Now, you probably know this, but I'm going to tell you anyway, because it's pretty interesting and valid in this context. So Galileo was imprisoned by the Roman Inquisition because he appeared to agree with the heliocentric theory of Copernicus. Now, this was the theory that the planets revolved around the sun, and it went directly against the biblical theory that everything revolved around the earth. And so the church actually asked Galileo to look into this theory of Copernicus, the heliocentric theory. And Galileo appeared to be like, I think there's something to this. And so he was imprisoned for life. I think the latter part of his life, he was on home arrest or whatever, but he was a pariah. So it's interesting to note that the Vatican did not admit that Galileo was right until 1992. Pope John Paul II initiated an investigation in 1979 into the Catholic Church's condemnation of Galileo, and it took 13 years for the Pope to officially close the investigation and issue a formal apology. Now, it's interesting that it took 13 years for the church to figure this out and admit that the planets orbit the sun. I mean, what does this say about our own blind spots? And yes, us as individuals, but really our societal blind spots, how able are we to see these blind spots and hubris when it comes to science and truth? It's a little bit valid right now, isn't it? I mean, how able are we to consider that 350 years from now, that's how long it was for Galileo to be made whole? Although he can't actually be made whole because his finger is on display in a museum in Florence. That's a whole other thing. Galileo's body was dug up and they cut off some fingers and stuff anyway. So what we see is an obvious, non-debatable truth that may actually prove to be very different. It's a little bit humbling. My candle agrees. I don't know if you can hear that. So back to the links. The power of the links is significant. In the book Animal Speak by Ted Andrews, I love this book. I've had it since I was a child. It's literally falling apart, but it's an amazing book. In this book, he states that the lynx draws knowledge from the heavens, and their gray color symbolizes the clouds and their ability to draw out ancient wisdom that is otherwise obscured. The Greeks believed the lynx had X-ray vision. Of course, they didn't think of it as X-ray vision because they didn't know about X-rays, but they thought that that lynx could see through solid objects. And the Norse fertility goddess Freya, she rode a chariot that is often depicted as being pulled by a pair of lynx. So this star, a Skiacat, it gives stealth and cunning. It gives us the ability to see the inner workings of others, as well as errors, secrets, falsehoods, fears, and even abilities that people can't see in themselves. That's pretty cool. And this is very much connected to this moon opposite Pluto with the sun conjunct Pluto energies we have going on here. So with this influence, it's very, very important that we trust our instincts. The things that we imagine are probably more accurate right now than the things that we think. No matter how weird and out there they may seem, there's probably a core of truth in there. Another thing to keep in mind is that any break of confidences at this time can bring swift and significant repercussions. There's a greater chance of things being made public, things being twisted, far from their original meaning. So let's be silent, stealthy ninjas, and be just kind of observant as we embody this lynx energy at this time. So the word askiakat means thorn in Arabic. Now, thorns are a protective mechanism of plants, obviously, and some magical practitioners use cacti and other thorned plants as protector allies. They actually program these plants to be protective. Now, the rune Thurisaz looks like a thorn. I may not be saying that right. It looks like a thorn and is named after an Anglo-Saxon poem called Thorn, which speaks of the torture of women. This word also means giant and is attributed to the Nordic god Thor. So from the website runesecrets.com is a wonderful website to learn about the runes. And on that website, this is what they say about the rune Thurisaz. It says, it's not uncommon for the rune meaning of Thurisaz to be described as a thorn that is most sharp, a grim and evil thing to take grip on or touch. However, it is representative of Thor and his hammer, protecting from the Thyrses, which are the giants who resist the expansion of consciousness throughout the multiverse. In every respect, the energies of Thurisaz are a forceful enemy of unconsciousness, ignorance, and the rule of brute violence. Thurisaz represents the warrior that combines consciousness and wisdom with matters requiring force. Thor is the champion god of courageous and free human beings and the ultimate physical fighting force. Thurisaz is also a fertility rune in the sense that it breaks down the barren and hard rocky realms into workable soil, as to bring fruitfulness to crops and wombs. Now, this is so freaking cool because Cancer, both the sign of Cancer and the moon as an astrological body, represent the common people, the regular people like you and me, not the elites, not the billionaires. So this, in a very real way, is the people's full moon, the people's truth. This is so incredibly deep to me. I hope you think it's super deep too. I hope you're enjoying this because it's just super yummy. So Thor is the god of the common people, and he's known, or was known, is known as the protector of humanity and of the earth plane. His hammer, Mjolnir, has long been revered as a protective amulet and was, the wearing of Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, as an amulet came about during the Christian conversion when, people were really being tortured and forced into abandoning the ways of their ancestors. And so the wearing of the Mjolnir, which a little bit resembles an upside down cross. And I often think about this as to the potential reason as to why the church sort of seeded the idea that an upside down cross means evil, because Mjolnir, the amulet, looks a little bit like an upside down cross. So we know that in order to convert people, they had to make everything that they believed in evil. So it's interesting to note that Mjolnir has an asteroid, and at the time of this full moon, it is conjunct the Great Attractor. And this to me speaks of a powerful protective force that is fated to be in place for the people, for the common people, as well as the possibility of some actual divine intervention, which I'm not really about. I really believe that we're in this on our own and we have to dig our way out. But I'm certainly not opposed to the idea that we could have some divine intervention. And I'm certainly welcoming of any and all protective energies for the people that we can get on board or happen to have on board. The other thing that is super wild is that today is Thor's Bloat, which is a pagan feast day celebrating Thor. On this day, Norse pagans and other types of pagans, or people who just like Thor, eat, drink, be merry, and read poetry, all in Thor's honor. Now tell me this isn't all divinely orchestrated. I could not make this up if I tried. So I have to add that when it comes to United States astrology, like I said in the beginning, this full moon is exactly opposing the United States Pluto. It's conjunct the United States vertex at this time, and transiting Pluto is less than 1 degree from coming into the first exact Pluto conjunction in the Pluto return cycle of the United States. I made a video about this, link in the description box. So this is a powerfully significant time that we could experience dramatic twists and turns in fated events. Consider all that I've said with this in mind, and I think that we can see that even though we've had a rough couple of years collectively, I know I've said this before, but this is a long game, and the process of full revelation and the subsequent rebuilding phase is going to take some time. So it's all the more reason to lean into the sanity of some well-cultivated North Node and Taurus energy as they make that move into a new sign. Please check that out. I really am super passionate about this, about the North Node moving into Taurus and how we can use that to just be okay. So that's not all. The full moon is opposing the asteroid goddess Hestia. Now, Hestia is the Greek version of Vesta, and she's the domestic deity of the hearth fire. Now, again, we have this reference to things of a domestic nature and the common folk, the common people. So in the Greco-Roman world, every hearth was the source of the household's warmth and light. And every one of them was an altar to this goddess. They had a public sanctuary containing an eternally lit flame that was also maintained in her honor. Now think about the effort that would go into that. Even more so, whenever a new colony was established, the hearth fire would be ceremoniously transported from this sacred fire to the new city. So the fire was essentially symbolic of the city spirit, and the fire residing at the core of each home embodied that life force, the life force of that dwelling and the connection to the home fires of the city, of the community. So Hestia / Vesta had some pretty famous and powerful siblings. She was the sister of Zeus, Poseidon, Demeter, Hades, yet she was considered to be the most humble, peaceful, gentle, and charitable of all the Olympian gods. Her throne was just regular, simple wood, sitting next to the hearth fire, and she wore just regular plain clothes. She possessed no personal emblem, and she was often depicted in art with a cloth draped over her hair, possibly symbolizing her modest nature. So in the story, when Dionysus arrives at Mount Olympus, Hestia offers her seat to him, saying that she would prefer to sit by the fire. She rejected love and romance, swearing to always remain a virgin. And, Poseidon and Apollo all courted her passionately, and she just wasn't into it. They had a common phrase, Hestia before all, which aptly expresses the influence and primacy of this goddess in the ancient world. Ritual offerings to any god performed at home began with small offerings to Hestia. And even though she is sort of less exciting than many of the other popular gods and goddesses, she was deeply loved and revered by many. So this asteroid brings in domestic matters, the common people, the home, tending the home fires. And it's also about devotion and union, sexual union, divine union with the self and with others, divinitizing it. This is a really incredibly beautiful energy that I'm so happy is thrown in the mix here. I hope you enjoyed this. In my Facebook group, the Galactic Mystics Facebook group, I went live and talked about making a full moon altar. It's probably still available if you want to join us there and watch that video. If you've never made a full moon altar, this would be a really beautiful time to start. There's so much meaning here. There's so much magic and power for us available. It's just beautiful. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and let me know your thoughts about this. What do you think? How's it going for you? Are you doing any full moon rituals? Do you make a full moon altar? Let me know. I love hearing your thoughts, and thank you so much. I will see you soon.